Wow, a lot has changed, but I think the biggest thing, Carson, that's changed is the divergence in monetary policy. I mean, keep in mind, a year and a half ago, central banks around the world were telegraphing, they were in sync, doing things together. But now we're seeing a divergence of monetary trends among the banks, and that's just causing us, not slight, but it's causing overwhelming disruptions in the market, fractions in the market, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it all pans out.
And yet, as you know, the street has climbed inexorably in one direction. It has not paused for breath. It's like an Olympic swimmer that believes it can do those laps back to back to back, and somehow its lung capacity will eventually show that it isn't superhuman. What happens, and when does that happen, Larry? What's your timeline?
You know, that's a great question. And, you know, we're in the midst of a policy experiment that the world has never tried before. So it's hard to guess, like, what's going to happen. But I think a lot of what we're seeing right now is just merely headlines. I mean, we're talking about Europe stumbling. Like today in the U.S., they talk about the industrial production number in Germany. Going back to August, I mean, yeah, it was a bad number and we dropped today, but the factory orders number was bad the day before and nobody seemed to care. The fact is, you know, Europe is stumbling a little bit, but they're still in expansionary mode, and the same would go with China. I mean, China is going through some enormous structural changes, but they're still growing just from a very high base. I think the biggest thing right now, the issue in America, is that it seems like U.S. is the only country that's growing and growing at a really pretty decent pace. How long can that go, and can they pull the train forever? I mean, that's a big maybe. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. And when you look at the yield curve continuing to flatten out, it's a sure sign that there's a lot of divergence of opinion right now.
You know, in typical sessions where you've seen a bit of a wobble, so an unwind in this case to the tune of triple digits, typically is there reappraisal 24 hours later, some bargain hunting kicks in and we're off to the races again?
You know, it definitely seems that way, and this market has to stop with these fake rallies. In the U.S., we saw one on the 24th of September, the 26th of September, and October 3rd. Let's keep in mind from August, at the end of August, we rallied all the way up to 2020 in the S&Ps for no reason at all. And actually, what happened today, it just seems so hard and so painful, but we're having these knee-jerk reactions on nothing, and people are just searching with no conviction on why the market's doing what it's doing, where the risks are all known. So the best thing that could happen right now is for the market to continue just to consolidate, and for the S&P, that would be 1950 to 1985 until further notice.
Well, it's okay. That's the consolidation number. Talk to me in Forex land about maybe, just maybe, having to unwind these long positions that, you know, the markets have priced to perfection the tightening cycle. Have they done that rather to their detriment?
Yeah, you know, and that's a good point. I think they definitely have overshot. It's a very crowded trade. When you look at especially like the 2-year yields and how volatile they've been, I do think that's the case. And I have readjusted my predictions for the year end for these currencies. I do believe 125 euro US is reasonable. 87 for the Aussie. I was at 89. US Mexican is about 132 and Japan 109. But yeah, it seems like it's overshot, but there's this whole thing of disinflationary trends around the world. So it is a crowded trade. It does make me nervous, keeps me up at night. But it seems like the trend right now is your friend.
You know, it's a dual mandate. The Fed not only looking at jobs, but at broad-based price stability. We're getting an inflation read towards the end of this month. Larry, it looks as if it's a downward spiral. That's not kind of success from the Fed. That's more failure.
Yeah, I think you could say that it would be failure. But I do think tomorrow is going to be a telltale when we have the Fed minutes. I do believe the last time they spoke was a little bit more hawkish in nature. It seems like, you know, when you look at the rate markets, the FX markets, they've gotten on notice. The equity market hasn't. They're waiting for tapering to occur. Whether it be a failure or not, who knows? Because I don't think we're seeing lack of inflation, just a disinflationary trend around the world. I do believe it's temporary. The winners from all of that, Larry, in the real economy, so that the end
consumers of corporate America or corporate Australia are, of course, the citizens who are looking at cheaper energy prices, for instance. How does that play out in the US? Is that triggering a widespread sense that actually consumers are going to open their wallets? They're going to get in their SUVs, they're going to fill up, they're going to go to those malls of America, and they will burn the plastic?
Yeah, you know, I hope so, but it's funny. Refinery costs are such and the output is such that gasoline prices are still quite elevated. Although we saw another 1.5% drop in crude prices, we're not seeing that at the gas pump quite yet. So I don't think people are ready to buy SUVs anytime soon. With gasoline being about $3.60 a gallon national average, it's still a little bit higher than it needs to be. I think we're going to need to see it about $1 lower before people start getting excited about SUVs again.
Larry, just sum up from where you sit there, meters away from all the action. Collectively, how do you compare and contrast your thinking in Chicago with what the street does in New York? Are you kind of, reluctant bedfellows, or do you see yourself as rivals? Really briefly.
You know, no, we're definitely bedfellows. We're so deeply connected, 800 miles apart, but a millisecond away electronically. So what they're doing, what we're doing is so intimately connected that it really is not much difference at all.
All right. Birds of a feather, and all of that are divided just by a little distance. Thank you, Larry, so much. Wonderful to see you once again.
You're welcome.
All right.